Hi everyone, I'm Srinidhi Kulkarni, one of the product managers for OCI GoldenGate. I'm excited to announce the general availability of GoldenGate on Oracle Database at Azure. It's a fully managed GoldenGate service running within Azure data centers. In this video, we'll walk through what GoldenGate on Oracle Database at Azure actually is, look at the architecture for a multi-region, multi-cloud AI-ready data pipeline, do a live demo replicating data between two autonomous AI databases, and also plan to land the data into a Microsoft Fabric mirrored database. So let's start with what's new. The following diagram shows the reference architecture for Oracle Database at Azure. Let me break this down in plain language. Azure region is where your application tier lives. We have an Azure VNet with two subnets. Application subnet is where your app servers and VMs run. Client delegated subnet is a dedicated subnet for Oracle Database at Azure components. OCI child site inside Azure is, even though we are in an Azure data center, Oracle deploys a fully managed OCI child region beside your Azure workload. This child site includes Oracle Database at Azure services such as GoldenGate, along with Exadata Database Service, Autonomous AI Database, and Base Database Service. So this means that GoldenGate runs on Exadata infrastructure and offers the performance of Exadata without leaving Azure. Parent OCI region. The parent OCI region is still present behind the scenes, providing control plane, vault for secrets, recovery service, and object storage for backups. So Azure apps can connect to Oracle databases over an OCI managed low latency network, represented here by the two arrows between Azure VNets and the child VCN. So if you're already running Oracle database at Azure, you can now use GoldenGate for replicating data between any Oracle database at Azure and land that data into Microsoft Fabric, either in Lakehouse or mirrored database. It could be used for analytics, Power BI, and AI workloads downstream. So that's a single continuous data pipeline from transactions to creating regional copies to powering analytics and AI workloads. The service is available in multiple partner Azure partner regions around the world. So for example, we started off with US East and Japan East, and we have added four other regions, including Canada Central, Toronto being the latest one. Furthermore, the footprint is rapidly expanding. The underlying Oracle database at Azure service is already live in 30 plus regions globally and is expected to grow to 33 and more by the end of this year. So, giving customers a broad choice of deployment geographies to meet their latency, compliance, and data residency requirements. So before we jump into the demo, let's quickly look at what's required to run GoldenGate on Oracle Database at Azure. From an access perspective, GoldenGate deployments are typically managed by infrastructures and database administrators. In OCI, the key is that the user must be part of ODBAA GoldenGate administrators group. So if your Oracle database at Azure tenancy was provisioned after October 7th of this year, this group and roles are already created automatically. For any older existing tenancy, you'll need to create this group manually within OCI IAM and then attach the correct policies. So there is a system policy at the tenancy level that gives access this group to whatever it needs, such as the ability to work with GoldenGate resources, associated network resources, and any other multi-cloud linking objects between OCI and Azure. So if you prefer not to do this by hand, Oracle also provides a small cloud shell script that can automatically create the ODBA GoldenGate administrators group and attach the corresponding GoldenGate policies to that group for you. For secrets management, the same group also needs write access to vaults, keys, and secrets in the GoldenGate compartment. So this is what allows users to create and use secrets directly from the GoldenGate UI and configure deployments and connections. So on top of user access, we also define a dynamic group for the GoldenGate deployment themselves. This lets the GoldenGate deployment to have access to any of the OCI services securely, like vault and keys at one time. So with this prerequisites in place, your environment is ready to be created, and you can also modify and delete the Golden Gate deployments on Oracle Database at Azure. In the demo today, we'll walk through on how to deploy Golden Gate in one of the supported regions, configure the Golden Gate connections to the source and the target endpoints. We have three key players here. Source is an Oracle autonomous AI database in Japan East region. And we have another autonomous AI database acting as a target in a UK Azure region. So this gives a multi-region resiliency and local reads through that autonomous AI database. And we have also an additional target, which is Microsoft Fabric Mirrored Database, which is kept in sync using Golden Gate 23 AI distributed application analytics deployment. So in the middle, we are using a Golden Gate deployment. It is deployed as a managed service within Azure. With one Oracle deployment, we are handling the capture, that is extracting data from the source database, replicating it to the target autonomous AI database. And we also have an additional big data deployment, which streams those changes into Fabric mirrored database. So this pattern is particularly powerful because your operational systems stay on Oracle Autonomous AI Database, and you solve the problem of regional resiliency by replicating the data to a local autonomous AI database in UK region. And you also allow your analytics and BI workloads to be run over Fabric Mirror database. So there's no need for any nightly ETL or no batch jobs. So now let's jump into the Azure portal and walk through it. Onto the Azure portal. Before Golden Gate can be deployed on Oracle Database at Azure, make sure your subscription and OCI IAM policies are in place. So we first need to establish the foundational multi-cloud link objects. So this is the landing page for Oracle Database at Azure. On the landing page, you could see the multi-cloud resources section. So the resource anchor represents the Azure side of the Oracle resource. So it ties your OCI tenancy and Azure subscription together so that Golden Gate can be created inside Azure while still you'll be able to manage it from OCI. The network anchor, on the other hand, is what links the OCI managed networking objects with the customer's Azure virtual network. So it's the piece that enables Golden Gate deployments to communicate correctly across the two clouds. So the very first step the customer would have to complete is the creation of a new VNet and a new delegated subnet in Azure. So this is to ensure that there are no conflicts with pre-existing configuration or IP assignments. So during setup, we simply have to create the resource anchor and network anchor and note down the resource anchor and the network anchor names, and which would be used subsequently while creating the Golden Gate deployments. So once the VNet and the delegated subnet are created, you could go to the multi-cloud resources, go to resource anchor first, click on create, select the resource group, provide a name for your resource anchor, and the region can be global, and click next. Agree to the terms and conditions and provide your consent for the multi-cloud resource. Click next, create a tag, and finally click on review and create. So once that is created, you could see a resource anchor populated under resource anchors. I've already created one for the demo. Next step is to create a network anchor. Similarly, click on create, select the resource group, provide a network anchor name, select the correct region. For the purpose of the demo, I'll be using the Japan East as the region, zone 1 as the availability zone, and select the correct resource anchor from the drop down And then finally select the correct virtual network and delegated subnet which was created as part of prerequisites. So once these fields are populated, click on next, provide your consent, and finally click on review and create. So once the resource anchor and the network anchor are created, the next step is to go to the OCI console and start creating your Golden Gate deployments. Right now, the deployment have to be created from the OCI console, but soon the option would be available where customers can create it easily and directly from Azure portal as well. For the purpose of the demo, we'll be using two databases. The Autonomous AI database in Japan East would serve as a source database, and Autonomous AI database within UK region will serve as the target, and will also plan to replicate the same data to a Fabric mirrored database. So let's start with the Golden Gate deployment. So on the OCI console within Oracle AI database, go to the Golden Gate tab, and under deployment, you could click on create deployment to start creating your deployment. Provide a name for your Golden Gate deployment. And under subscription, make sure to select Oracle DB at Azure subscription. And within compartment, select the network anchor that we created and select the multi-cloud partner region as well. So which would be Japan East in my case, and select the zone 1 as the availability zone. And under deployment type, make sure to select data replication. And as we would be replicating data between two autonomous AI databases, we want to select the technology type as Oracle database. And subsequently, we also need a secondary deployment, which will be of type big data, which will be responsible for replicating the same data to the Fabric mirrored database. So there would be two deployments created, one with technology type selected as Oracle database, and the second deployment with the technology type as big data. The version could be the default latest version 23.10, and under hardware configuration, you could either select development testing or production. Within the deployment, make sure you select the subnet, which translates to the network anchor that we created. So as you could see, the name of the network anchor along with the subscription ID. So select the same subnet, and you have an option to either select license included or bring your own license. Provide a name for your Golden Gate deployment instance. And under credential store, you have an option to either select the OCI IAM for authenticating to your deployment for login, or you could use the Golden Gate credential store. And you can then supply your username and secret. Once all these fields are populated, you could go ahead and click on create. So once the deployment is created, you'll see the status as active. And I have similarly created two deployments as stated earlier, one for capturing data and replicating the data to an autonomous AI database, and the big data deployment for replicating that data to Fabric mirrored database. So if we check the details of the deployment, you could see the subscription type is Microsoft Azure. So make sure this shows up as Microsoft Azure. So this will confirm that the Golden Gate deployment that was created is part of Golden Gate on Oracle Database at Azure. And it will have a mapped subscription ID along with all the fields that we selected while creation. So once the deployments are created, the second step is to create connections. So under connection sections, click on create connection. So the connection will be responsible for connecting to the source and the target endpoints. So we could select the autonomous AI database connection. So we can supply a name. Similarly, select the subscription as Oracle DB at Azure, select the network anchor as the compartment, and the region as Japan East, availability zone as zone 1. So under type, make sure you select Oracle Autonomous AI Database because our source and the target are Autonomous AI Database. And if you have any other targets where you would be interested in replicating or capturing data from, so in that case, you could select from the list of supported sources and targets for Golden Gate. So for the purpose of the demo, I'll be selecting the AI, Autonomous AI Database. As the source is also in the Japan East region, I can simply go ahead and select the Autonomous AI Database from the drop-down, use the pre-created GG and also supply the password as a secret, and then finally click on Create. Similarly, we would have to create a connection for the target autonomous AI database and also the Fabric mirrored database. So let's create a connection for Fabric mirrored DB. Select the subscription as Oracle DB at Azure. Select the compartment as the resource anchor name. Partner region as Japan East. Zone 1 as the availability zone. And under type drop down, just select the Microsoft Fabric Mirror as the connection type and provide the values for the Azure tenant ID, client ID, and the client secret. So these are basically the intra ID authentication credentials that would allow Golden Gate to connect to your Fabric Mirror database. So once you provide all these values, click on create, and that would create the connections and go back to the deployments and click on assigned connections, and then you would have to assign the connections that we created. So select the correct compartment and you could select the connections and click on assign connections. So this would allow or assign the connections to the deployment. Similarly, we could also create multiple connections. So as you can see, I've also created an Exadata at on Oracle Database at Azure connection. So this would allow Golden Gate to connect to an Exadata database and capture data or replicate data too. And if I go back to the big data deployment, similarly, I've assigned the Fabric mirrored database connection to the big data deployment. So once the connections are assigned, click on Launch Console. So you will get to the Golden Gate UI. So under the UI within DB connections, we can also test the connections to the database. So for example, we can test the connection or the DB login to the source database, which is in Japan East. And we could also test connection to the autonomous AI database within UK region. So this successfully shows that we were able to connect Golden Gate deployment to the source and the target databases. So once the connectivity is validated, go to the extract. We would have to create the extract process in order to capture data from the source database. So click on the plus icon, provide a name for the extract, B, click next. We would have to select the credentials that we created for the Golden Gate deployment or extract process to connect to the source database. Provide 2 characters as the trail name. Click next. You could leave all these values as default. And here all the values are automatically populated. The only parameter that you would have to supply is the source table name. So in this case, we would be capturing data from the customer demo table, which is under the demo user schema. And we hit create. So this will create an extract process. As you can see, I've already one running and it is capturing data from the customer demo table. Similarly, you could create an extract which will capture data from an Exadata database. And once the extract process is created, the next step is to create a distribution path. So which will be responsible for sending the trail file across from an Oracle deployment to a big data deployment. So within the distribution service, go to the distribution path, click on the plus icon, provide a name for the distribution path, select the extract. So this is the one, and we click on next. We select the protocol as WSS, provide the target host name, so which would be easily fetched from the console URL. So you can see this is the target host URL. And supply the port number as 443, provide a 2-character trail name, provide a user credential, can leave these values as default and hit create. So once the path is running, you'll see the status to be running. And similarly, the path can be easily verified on the receiver service of the big data deployment. So we have the path also running and showing up on the receiver service of the big data deployment. Okay, so we till now we have an extract process which is capturing data from the source database, which is an autonomous AI database running in Japan East. And now the next step is to create a replicat, which will be replicating data to our first target, which is also an autonomous AI database, but in UK region. So to create a replicat, we can create the replicat process within the same deployment, or we could provision a Golden Gate on Oracle Database at Azure deployment within UK region as well. So to create a replicat, click on the plus icon. We could use the parallel non-integrated as the replicat type, provide a name, click next, and the 2-character trail file name that we used in the extract. Select the target database credentials and select the checkpoint table name. Click next. We could leave this field as default. And within the mapping, we want to define the source and the target table names. So we would be using the same schema and the same table name for source and target. So we could change the schema and the table name within our map statement. So once the replicat is created up and running, so this is the map statement. We have the source schema and the table name, which is being mapped to the target schema and the table name. So we have an extract process capturing from an autonomous AI database in Japan East. We have a replicat process, which will be replicating the data to an autonomous AI database in UK region. So next up is creating a replicat process in the big data deployment that will be replicating the data to the Fabric mirrored database. So as we have the trail being shipped from an Oracle Golden Gate deployment to a big data deployment, we can go ahead and create a replicat process. So we can provide a name, click next, select the 2-character trail name that we use within the distribution path. can leave these values as default. Within the target, we need to select the mirrored database in Microsoft Fabric. And this will show up the connection or the alias that we created earlier. Click next, leave these as default. And within the map statement, we want to map the source schema and table name to the Fabric mirror database schema PB, and we want to keep the same name under Microsoft Fabric mirror database. Once you define the mapping statement, click next. So within the properties, there are only two values that we need to provide. First one is the workspace name, that is where the Microsoft Fabric mirror database is, and the mirror database name itself. So once we provide these values, go ahead and click on create and run. So this will get the Replicat process up and running. So this is the one that I've already created. So if we go to the properties, so this is my workspace name and this is my mirrored database name. So if you can see, so this is the mirrored database name and this is the workspace name where the mirrored database is located. And this is my map statement. So we are replicating data from the customer demo under demo user schema to the schema within the mirror database. So now we have an extract process and Replicat processes already created and which are up and running. Now we can go ahead and do some execute some DML operations. So as you can see, I do not have any data on the source database. We can validate the same on the target. So let's go ahead and execute some DML operations on the source database. And if we can do a select on the table. So the source table now looks like this. And we can go back to our GoldenGate deployment, go to the extract and make sure the extract process has captured data. So we can go ahead and check that within statistics. So as you can see, there were 5 inserts done, 3 updates and 2 deletes that were captured by the extract. And we can also validate the same on the Replicat process. And so you can see the same DML operations have also been replicated to the target database, which is an autonomous AI database in UK region. We can validate the same on the database as well. So the row and the column value matches. Let's go ahead and check the same on the big data Replicat. Go to the statistics tab. So you can see the same DML operations have also been applied by the GoldenGate Big Data Replicat, which is responsible for replicating data to the mirror database. So we can validate the same on the mirror database. We can check under tables and refresh. So this is the landing zone where GoldenGate will be landing data. And as you can see, it has created a table. So within our Replicat process, we have mapped it to GGS AZ Fab demo schema. So it has created the schema and the table under the same name. And we can also view the records on the mirror database. So similarly, go to the SQL endpoint, expand the schema, We expand this, expand the table, hit refresh, click on the table name. So as you can see, the same records have also been applied to the target mirrored database within Fabric. And the same records, once landed within the Microsoft Fabric mirrored database, we can utilize the data to create Power BI reports. And we can also run our AI workloads on top of the data being replicated by GoldenGate in near real time. So the transaction that was committed on the source was replicated to the database in UK region and also to a mirrored database within Fabric, which is also visible for analytics and AI all within seconds. So if you want to try this yourself, you can contact your Oracle rep to enable Oracle Database at Azure and use GoldenGate on Oracle Database on Azure with your subscription. You can also follow the official quick starts and the blog that we have published. And we'll put all the relevant links in the video description below. Thanks for watching. If this was helpful, hit like, subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you would like to see next. It could be integrating GoldenGate on Oracle Database at Azure with ADLS. So see you in the next video.